Divine marvels, children of God. Thank you so very much for dropping by. I am delighted to be making this video. I'm delighted to be out in nature. I'm delighted to be alive. As I've shared many times, Bruno Groening's teachings literally saved my life. And I'm delighted to be passing that along. But before we hop in, first I would like to say I don't speak for Bruno Groening. In my view, nobody does, and no organization does. We all just share our best understanding of Bruno's teachings and our experience with trying to learn them and understand them. So please, listen to everything I say, but don't blindly believe everything I say or anything that anyone else says about Bruno Groening or actually about any topic. Listen, but don't just blindly believe, especially on YouTube. There's literally a pandemic of people coming on YouTube and just spouting off spiritual teachings. So it's very important to learn discernment. With all that said, I'm going to start us off with a prayer, and then I've got something I'm really excited to talk about. So, infinite, limitless source, as Bruno said, Leben, life, existence, being, love. Bruno said God is love, and Ordnung. Bruno said God is divine harmony. Thank you so much for one more day of life, and thank you so much for your beloved son, Bruno Groening, and his coming and all that he did for all of us. Thank you so much for all the helps and healings that his spiritual help and his teaching has helped me, others, and hundreds of thousands of people experience. Please, for this particular video, please, I just ask that all of us can feel your comfort and presence and take in the divine power that helps and heals. And please guide and bless all those who come to watch it and all those who come to this channel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, hi to my live viewer, warm welcome. So, over and over and over, Bruno Groening talked about the Great Turnaround, also called the Great Return or the Great Reversal. But what exactly was he talking about? And he said, I call humanity to the Great Turnaround. Hi, I can't quite read your name. Welcome, all these other, oh wow, all these people saying hi. Hello, welcome. So Bruno Groening called us to the Great Turnaround, the Great Reversal, the Great Return. Well, but what exactly does that mean? Well, he explained it of calling people back to God. And of course, he defined God very differently than a lot of the major religions in the world have, at least the Western religions have. And back to living in harmony with nature. And so it took me a long time to really start to understand that Bruno Groening's primary teaching wasn't his primary teaching wasn't about physical healing. Some people said that I'm reminding them of Charlie Kirk. Okay. I mean, I can think of worse things to remind people of. So, because most of us come to Bruno Groening because we're seeking physical healing. I mean, I was desperate. You know, when I first came to Bruno's teachings, oh wow, look at that background, look at the sky. And the way that a lot of people present Bruno's teachings as if it's just about healing or healing is the main thing. But as I've said many times, and I will continue to say for my benefit and for the benefit of others, that Bruno said physical healings were only 10% of his teaching. So I've been on this journey for the last, 11 years of trying to understand, well, what's the 90%? Through grace and grit, I really understood the 10% about healing very well, or not perfectly, but I had a lot of healings, life-saving healings through this teaching. But So let's see. Someone just said a comment, and I want to read it, but I don't want to lose my train of thought. I'll come back to your comment. Thank you so much. So, so what is the other 90%? I've spent the last literally decade trying to understand it, and my short answer is that it's a spiritual way of life. That physical healings are a part of that, but and learning how to seek and know and do God's will, learning how to properly view life and understand the meaning of life, growth and learning. Bruno Groening said this world is a school, and that we are here to learn not just facts, but to learn come to have spiritual understanding, and ultimately to find spiritual freedom. To learn to have faith no matter what is going on, which is my understanding and definition of faith, to trust in Source, God, regardless of what's happening outside of us, and ultimately to find peace regardless of what's going on. So that's not to downplay the role of physical healing. It's very important and very beautiful, and as I said, it saved my life. However, I believe much more important is learning how to be at peace. And here's where it gets really interesting, learning how to be at peace when something doesn't heal as quickly as we want it to. Bruno said, I ask you not to determine for yourself the time at which a healing occurs. So, Bruno talked about it a little bit, and teachers, mystics, and sages throughout the ages have talked about surrendering to God. Well, what does that mean? It's a cool idea, but what does it mean to surrender to God? Well, part of what I've come to realize is that it means to be able to remain at peace even when things aren't going the way we want them to. And that includes things not healing as quickly as we would like. But it also means just events. This morning, right after I woke up, my cat just started meowing outside my door, and it's like, morning times, right after I wake up, that's like my sacred time. I pray, and I tune in for a couple minutes in bed, and I pray, and I really connect to God deeply, and then I get up and I go and I tune in, sit in my chair and tune in. And so I lost my peace over that. Because this is my sacred time. How dare you wake me up? And but that's so that was a lesson, and I got maybe a C minus. I got angry only for a second, and I let go of that anger, but I still got flustered and upset. So I'm sure I will get to repeat that lesson. So, and this actually really ties into healing, because it's very hard to experience healing if we're constantly worried and afraid and upset. If I let's say I'm working on healing my ankle, and I'm constantly thinking about the ankle, I'm constantly worried about it, and I'm constantly like, is this going to heal? That's going to block the healing energy. And Bruno said as much. He talked about people constantly thinking, is this going to heal? Or once a healing happens, is this going to last? And that's why Bruno said he loved working with animals, because their negative thoughts didn't block the healing energy. So, all this to say is, yes, physical healings are beautiful and amazing, but the spiritual way of life that Bruno called us to, of surrender, of having faith, of communing with nature, are all things that are profoundly supportive, and to a certain extent are going to be necessary for some healings. So I'm going to grab my glasses. Someone posted a comment. If anyone else has any other questions or comments, feel free to post them. I'm on my phone, so the text is very, very small. Someone wrote, someone said, no better reward than to be mortared. I don't know what the word mortared said for Jesus. You should be more concerned about Jesus's healing. Well, I don't I mean, that I don't know if you're still on here, but that's kind of an odd comment. I don't know what mortared means, and I don't know what Jesus's healings mean. That sounds like that Jesus experienced healing himself. Your comment's kind of vague. So what Bruno said about Christ was that Christ was the supreme spiritual healer, and that he was the Son of God, and that he is available to help all beings. So I'm not sure, that I'm not sure what you're trying to communicate. Um, it sounds like you're uncomfortable with me talking about healing and not mentioning Christ, which, I actually should, because I should do that more, actually, because Bruno said that what he taught was not his teachings, but simply the teachings of Jesus Christ. And so thank you for that. I'm still not sure exactly what you're trying to communicate, though. Uh, so someone said another Charlie Kirk. I mean, I'm talking more about spirituality than politics, and I don't. I mean, I don't. Do I look like Charlie Kirk, or I don't know exactly what you're trying to say. I don't promote Charlie Kirk. I don't know. So yeah, so this is a talk on spirituality and spiritual healing. I'm, people of all spiritual religious beliefs and no beliefs are welcome here, and people of all um, political beliefs or lack thereof. But I'm not sure if you read, but the topic for this talk was the Great Return, specifically Bruno Groening's teaching, which he said is the teaching of Christ, to for all of us to turn around to a spiritual way of life and to live in harmony for nature. So that's the topic. I mean, if you want to go talk about Charlie Kirk or politics, there's lots of other places to do that. So let's see. Do 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 do. Yeah, the comments are kind of just not really connected to what I'm talking about, so I'm going to let them go. All right. Well, I wish everyone a blessed day. I'm going to close out with a prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for one more day of life. Thank you so much for allowing Bruno to come, and that his teachings help to clarify the spiritual path and way of life that Christ taught and called us to. Please, for everyone who dropped by, including all the people who came and left interesting comments, please, just the highest blessing, may they feel the comfort of your presence and your spirit. And for all of us, please help us to understand the 90% of Bruno Groening's teachings, specifically the spiritual way of life that that Christ came and taught, and Bruno came and reminded us of. Say this in the name of everything that's holy. Amen. Well, thank you everybody for joining in, and let's see, I'm just taking care of something right here. One moment. Sorry, there's just a little technical. Well, let's see. You said, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, you're annoying. Anyone ever tell you that? It's been a while. And then you said, who is Bruno for the love of God? Well, I love talking about Bruno Groening, but insulting me and then asking your question in a, sort of a unfriendly manner doesn't really, and then you command me to explain. Wow. Doing this on my phone is quite the education. You can check out my website, thehealingstream.org. ThehealingStream.org. So I'd be happy to tell you live if you'd asked a little more nicely, but that's what I feel to do right now. Thank you everyone so much who joined in live and who took the time to watch this video. Take care. Bless.